the Venture Outfitter. Today, we're going to have an Ask Me Anything session, and really, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I really want to see and evolve our program to become, and part of the role of this weekly time. I've had several conversations about that. I'm going to talk specifically about that in just a little bit, but want to go ahead and say welcome to the Venture Outfitter. The Venture Outfitter. This is this whole set of notions around Tech Ranch of how is it that we have not only Tech Ranch programs, but other organizations being able to plug in, share training, insights, resources, relationships around the world. Now that, as many of you know, I've been in 27 countries over the last 6 years. We have all this activity that we want to plug people into. And one of the most fundamental things we're going to talk about today during the Ask Me Anything session is how that topology looks. And what I mean by topology is how is it shaped. Most people are so used to the normal corporate design that I'm going to make sure that we spend some really in-depth time talking about this today, because I want to shape our community. And I want to really put some more practice behind this idea about why this is a different type of program so we can take advantage of it. Thank you to DualWorks. DualWorks is a co-working place in the middle of Austin at 183 Mopac and 360. And you might ask, what are those numbers? For those of you that don't live in Austin, there are 5 major roads going through Austin, and 3 of them intersect about 100 yards away from where I'm sitting right now. And our studio is right in the middle of that. And so DualWorks is a co-working location that has a lot of configurability, and they've been one of our long-term sponsors of Tech Ranch. And even before that, Linda Blackman, that runs DualWorks, is a long-term Tech Rancher all the way back to what we called Venture Force 17, a cohort back then. So if you're looking for a place to plug into, I would like to say thank you to DualWorks for what they do. For those of you all that are international entrepreneurs, the nice thing about it is if you have a specific need, they will go out of their way to help you coordinate or cater to what you need in a way that a lot of the other co-working locations, like places like WeWork, nothing to knock against WeWork, because WeWork's a really nice facility too. But the difficulty is that WeWork does things in a very standard way, whereas DualWorks will work with you. So if you're considering that, ask us about them or reach out to them directly and let them know that you've heard about them through Tech Ranch. If you're not on the Tech Ranch community site, I really want to do a call for that, because I recognize that as we enter into what are looking like are going to be more difficult times about remember the downturn that happened around 2001? Many of you actually were still in diapers back in that time. Sorry, I'm not going to claim that I'm like one of the old timers, but I will say that I am one of the original gangsters of Austin. I've now gone through 3 different downturns that have happened during the time that I've been an entrepreneur. And one of the things that I think is going to start becoming more visible is the need about how we leverage each other in the Austin entrepreneurial system. I can point to 3 different times through my career that's because we had the community as a safety net that we were able to get move forward. And all the economic indicators indicate that this is going to happen again. They're going through some type of downturn. Who knows what it is? But during that time, the number one thing you can do is, when you don't have as much financial capital available, having social capital is a really powerful thing. What I mean by social capital, that's like, what can you and I do with each other, or, a group of us as entrepreneurs? What can we get done despite not having a lot of resources or having, some attenuated demand from our customers? Facebook here locally has said that they're not going to rent 700,000 square feet of space. Google said something similar. It's obvious that things are slowing down in some ways, but part of the power of tapping into the community site is we're going to really focus on some of the activities that we learned previously in years past and bring them back so that you have a place to plug in. to participate in this, you're going to have to be in the community site. So if you hadn't heard your invite before, this is your invite. If you don't have a way of like turning that QR code that's on the screen into a URL, go to techranch.com/connect, and there's a specific link to go to sign up for the community. And we'll talk about the community some more today, because it's going to be a good time to do so. There's going to be a number of different programs that are happening and we're about to launch another thematic set of announcements about what we're going to do for the next few Venture Outfitter Weeklies. But part of what's happening as we create more connectivity between Texas and Mexico, or more generally, the Americas, especially Canada, Mexico, and the United States. I'm going to be doing some on-site type of programs, and everyone on the program, or anyone that knows me, knows that I have been really bullish about Mexico for about 30 years of my life, because my first customer ever was a bank in Guadalajara, Mexico. And so out of that, part of one of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to be doing some regional travel. I'm investing some of my time and some of TechRanch's resources into creating more connectivity into this larger community that I'm speaking about. So on May 4th, I'll be doing a live VO Weekly from Chihuahua, Mexico, and we'll have a couple of people of note in that. I'll be giving a keynote the next day, the day before, to a group of the fathers of the city. I was trying to think of a different way of saying that, but like a lot of the people that are driving the city, going to be meeting with them on May 3rd, and then May 4th, we'll give you kind of a report from that. You're going to see this across other parts of Mexico, other parts of the world, just like we did the program from Lithuania just a few weeks ago. I think it was on March 26th that we did that. And we'll report in about that. If you have specific interest in these different regions that are coming, one of the ways of taking advantage of your connection is, I can be your man on the ground in some of the abilities to build these venture bridges that we're talking about. This trip specifically is for, seeing how we can create greater connectivity. And I'm investing some of my own time and money into driving that, because I'm convinced more than anything before that now is the time that the U.S.-Mexico relationship should really be harvested. We talked about that last week. Randy Baker came on and talked about why he's driving part of his business across the border and how to really take advantage of that. So we'll talk about that on May 4th. But one of the things I want to report about CareStarter. CareStarter is a company that was started in 2013. This is Lamarck Bovoldo. You will hear from him in coming weeks, but they just launched the 2023 Texas-wide regional study of Lamarck has a child. One of his children has developmental difficulties, and there's a specific set of needs around that population that has not been served. And so what's really great is I got to sit in a program where Lamarck was presenting to a number of different investors, including myself, saying, hey, this is the data that we've now pulled together. CareStarter's number one customer at this point is the Air Force. And one of the things that the Air Force is concerned with is, how do we have a force that's ready for combat? One of the ways you do that is the Air Force knows that to take care of its airmen, it has to take care of the families that these airmen represent. And so one of the beautiful things that's happened is Lamarck is now serving that population around the Air Force. The beautiful thing about it is I think that this represents what we'll see in the future about what really should be happening across the United States. But really excited to hear about that. In the newsletter coming soon, there's going to be an offer talking about supporting this. And because Lamarck and CareStarter has been such a powerful, or heartwarming, but also hitting the powerful intervention for solving problems for the families that have children that have these type of difficulties. I really want to start presencing how the entrepreneur pioneers of the last 20 years of us working with are really moving waves. And this is a good example. They've got the largest database of interactions to say what are families feeling and where are the breakdowns in the healthcare system for this population. Now, obviously, we don't want to stop there, but Kira Strutter has really figured something out. They're going to come on to the VO Weekly in the coming weeks and tell us about it. So thank you, Lamarck. It was inspiring. He gave me recognition for saying, hey, thank you for the early stages of going through Tech Ranch. And now I have to tell you that one of the things I was real excited about is to see what he is doing with his team now. Here it is a decade later, and they're really kicking butt. And I'm excited about that. So congratulations, Lamarck, and keep on going. Cool. Well, so today's about an Ask Me Anything thing. And I just realized that part of the stuff that I want to talk about, I have a couple different slides that a lot of times I will answer questions around about the crossing the chasm, technology adoption life cycle. There's more answers to questions that I get in this. So I decided to throw it in. I have a few other slides that I might use, but part of what we'll do is just have a conversation. And there's several people that are on today that are in the studio audience that we haven't gotten to hear from in a long time. And I know one of our entrepreneurs from Hungary is here, and she told me, hey, I can only join for 20 minutes and they got to hop off. So we're going to hear from Celia before she has to hop off. Then we'll hear from Jarrett, who is in Oklahoma City. And then I'm going to throw it open to a lot of different people because I like to have a conversation about, ask me anything. And like you, including the difficult questions, although a lot of times it's not even the difficult questions, because most everyone here, there's several of you that I kind of know and then I don't know, and so we'll just throw it open. But Celia, how is Budapest and how are you doing? And tell us about what's happening in your business.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, for inviting me. I'm doing well. I told you yesterday that I was very worried because my brother was hospitalized, and I visited him, and I'm happy today and already since last afternoon because he's doing better. He had a small stroke, but it's okay. And how I am doing, thank you. I'm happy because when I spoke to the doctors who are treating my brother, telling them that my solution would help them get connected to other doctors with other specialties, they like very much the idea. So this assures me that the solution, my click doctor, that we have is really something that's very exciting. And what else? I'm thinking on looking at grants in the US to find a opportunity where we can also contribute with your team and your companies, where we could stand up together for mental health, because for me it's very, very scary from here in Europe to see what is going on in the schools everywhere regarding these shootings. It's just unacceptable. So if we can do anything, I am on it.
Yeah, so this notion of mental health for the wider audience that might be listening in, I will open up the streams on LinkedIn and on Facebook in a little bit if you have questions and you want to report in from there, or if you have questions for the people that speak. And in just a second, I'll have those back up. I realize I don't have them on just yet, but this mental health concern has been a long-term concern of myself as well, and we have an initiative around Tech Ranch. We haven't talked about the initiatives in a long time, and I realize that that's a mistake on my part. But for those of you who don't know about it, there is a number of mental health, concerned parties, as well as technology vendors, as well as for solving the shootings. Like not only the school shootings, but as an example, 3 people. Just a few days ago, we had 3 people who, in 3 separate instances, like a 20-year-old woman was killed because she pulled into someone's driveway just to turn around to pull out and then go. And a man walked out and shot the car twice. One of the 2 bullets struck this young woman and killed her. Same thing, a young man walked to the front door because he was supposed to pick someone up, and just wrong door, and he was shot twice as well. Now, thankfully, it looks like he's going to live. But yeah, there's a mental health crisis. I think it's happening around the world, but it's especially in, here we are in I don't know, the US, and it's weird. So Celia, I appreciate that you're tearing into that. And
Thank you.
The larger initiative that I want to make sure that everyone knows, the larger initiative that I want everyone to know, if you have a company or of companies to suggest, Celia and I working with one of the it hasn't been announced yet, so I'm not going to say which, but there's one of the large universities regionally for this area. We're working on how can we pull together solutions around this and then deploy them into a couple different areas, both on this issue about how do we actually change things concerning there's a fundamental something broken about our culture, whether you're pro gun or not gun. I don't know that I want to have that argument as much as the fact that we don't have responsible interactions with weapons is a compared to the rest of the world. There's something fundamentally broken about that. So there is a mental health crisis. Celia, do you want to talk a little bit more about what your company's looking to do in that, so that you can get a little advertising space for what y'all are already driving?
Okay, so as mentioned previously, My Click Doctor is a solution that's connecting people, connecting parties with a very strict business model, just letting them in with a very rigorous process. So this is how we plan to help among teachers or mental health specialists, psychiatrists, psychologists, doctors, and even parents. So this is what we could, or I would like to do.
Got it. So let's put this in context as well. A lot of times people are saying, why are we talking to an entrepreneur doctor in Budapest, Hungary, when we're here in Austin, Texas? With the concept is this, for the wider audience to hear, this issue of, obviously on its own, US is not solving this problem. And so gaining insight about how we might take on different aspects of this is why doctors like Celia are and why is Tech Ranch helping entrepreneurs and doctors in this case, gain access to the US market. Celia's a great example of this. She was part of a program that we did in 2021, funded by the Hungarian government, where the Hungarian government essentially funded building a venture bridge. And she's now, you have 1 foot in Austin, 1 foot in Budapest. Any reflections you'd like to make about the whole process and stuff like that might be helpful for the other international entrepreneurs that might be listening in?
I believe it's, yes, almost 2 years ago that I have known you, and I really, really enjoyed it. We had all parts of introduction, lectures, education. So Kevin had last December an event online where he was talking to the Hungarian pharmaceutical managers, who really, really enjoyed this presentation, and it was very useful. That was the feedback. Another aspect, another angle, it's always something which has an added value. And meantime, I learned myself a lot. With the help of Kevin, I was able to establish my company in the US. And though I don't have a contract yet with a client in my hands, but I can say that it is more about which project should I choose for the market, instead of I don't have opportunities. I do have, and I really appreciate that and help and mentoring from Kevin.
Yeah, well, thank you, Celia. You're too kind, and but the type of solutions that you have to offer the U.S. market, and then other parts of the world as well, are spot on for explaining the story that I've been talking about forever. Now, in my case, I happen to be lucky. My first customer was a bank in Guadalajara, Mexico, and I was based in Austin. I had a really advanced piece of technology, and part of the whole way that I discovered this whole idea of venture bridges is that, and the main thing is how we can figure out how to support each other. So Celia, we'll definitely keep your brother in our thoughts and prayers.
Thank
I hate using those terms because they're also being used about this lack of action concerning guns and violence in the United States. But thank you for your input.
Thank you, and you guys can
thank-
count on me.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for joining us today. The one thing that I want to say before I let you go is part of what we want to start doing is I'll talk about this in a little bit more in depth, but part of the power of in the open source software world, one of the things that's really powerful is you can have an open source platform like Linux, and you have literally thousands of people plugging in to the repository that has all the information. Like if you go to GitHub is like the innovation broker place for finding software. And there's a lot of communications that happen around that on that site for supporting things. That same paradigm is what I want to be pulling Celia and other entrepreneurs into so that we can actually discover markets together and then solve these problems faster. Celia, I know that you're going to be stepping out, but I'll make sure, I want to make sure I tell you about that. So you and I have the conversation about it, and then we'll talk during this program, and we'll send you the recording so that you can have access to it to talk about that more.
Thank you. It sounds cool, and I'm on it. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds great.
Everyone.
Okay,
Bye.
thank you for being here. Have a great evening. All right, Jarrett, I'm going to put you on the spot. Let's tell us, what are you up to these days in let's see, go ahead and go ahead and
Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So
No,
before I
was
jump
gonna
in,
make sure that you're being spotlighted, and Jello was just clicking on that. Okay, so you're in Oklahoma City, which to a Texan might be another foreign land. Maybe not as far as Hungary, but tell us what's up. You and I haven't really gotten to interact a whole lot in a while.
It's been a
Jared,
while.
for everyone else, is one of the entrepreneurial leaders of Oklahoma City. He's responsible for a couple different places there, co-working locations. Done a lot of startups there. He's also bridged a lot of the startups to the did I say it right? The oil community, the community.
A little bit,
As well as in healthcare, which Oklahoma City has some interesting stuff happening there as well. What are you up to these days?
Yeah. So before I get into that, you said that GitHub is the innovation broker. I disagree. I think you are the innovation broker. So. You're the OG and the IB. But
thank you.
So a little bit about me. Thank you for the welcome, Kevin. About 8 years ago, I helped start co-working spaces in Seattle and then in Oklahoma City. During that time, had 6 different venture funded, small scale, early stage startups. The last one was just right after coronavirus hit. Kevin and I actually worked together a little bit on this, but started Acorn Medical and started sourcing products from around the globe, brought in for the pandemic. It crashed and burned in a lot of ways. So if anybody needs masks or any PPE, I've got lifetime supplies for you. Over the last year,
wait. Let's give a little bit of perspective to that. It's interesting because Jarrett and I both aren't really traditionally commodities. We don't get involved in commodities, but there was such a scary request of doctors and healthcare professionals were saying, hey, we're going to go face these patients that have this disease that we still didn't know a lot about at the time, and we have no PPE, we have no protective equipment, and we're having to reuse protective equipment. And one of the things about it is, once you're infected on a piece of protective equipment, you don't necessarily want to put it back on. And they were having to do all sorts of crazy things. And so even though I don't really have a lot of commodities experience, I'm a high tech guy. I'm an innovator, right? The thing that was interesting is we got desperate calls from Spain, Italy, and Norway at the early stages, like by the end of March, I was getting calls from the director of innovation of the Italian Space Agency. So, who were talking about satellite stuff one day, and then we're talking about PPE the next day. where the Italians are trying to figure that out. So we, talked Jared into building a business around that. It was kind of interesting about how, how it flowed and all that sort of stuff. And
Yeah.
then some difficulties as well, because, the fire is over. So we have a lot of firefighting equipment now, but yeah, so
the interesting part, like when I first started, so I had sent off an email to the state of Oklahoma about, hey, I know somebody who's bringing in, at the time, I think it was 30 million masks. This is before, this is back in, I believe, February or March. So way early on. And I didn't get, didn't hear back for about a month. And then all of a sudden on a Tuesday morning at 9:05 a.m., I start getting calls from mayors around the state of Oklahoma saying, hey, we can find 1 million, but like our fire department only needs like, I don't know, maybe 20,000. Can you please help on that? So I'd reached out, done quite a bit of international work, and found great source in China, brought over some of those. And then later on, we kind of stumbled across, a lot of the raw material is not produced in the US. So everything from disinfectant wipes to gowns, all the non-woven fabric, the world production is pretty much made in China. So started bringing in that, and then our environmental policies around, certifications. So we bring in the raw goods, and then I have to go to a specific site that was certified by the EPA to pour in the disinfectant to make them certified for medical use. It was pretty interesting. It was, all this need. Everybody is just searching for stuff, and then all of a sudden, the market is just flooded. Over the last year, Kevin, maybe this would be my AMA. I've got a little bit of PTSD from like doing any venture. At the time, I had about 5 different things going. Acorn had really taken off, so I focused all my effort on Acorn, withdrew from everything else. And then now I've got this clean slate, but I've got this, it's almost like battle scars where I don't want to do anything on my own anymore for the time being. It seems like I can dream bigger on somebody else's idea than my own. And so that's kind of the phase now where I'm shifting from, self-entrepreneur to looking at what projects I can hop on.
Well, that's certainly that is something that's important. Earlier, when I was talking about this whole notion of having a safety, to be an entrepreneur in the US, it's really kind of weird, right? A lot of I see better support for entrepreneurs in some of the other countries, like especially everyone knows about the Nordic countries. That the Nordic countries are some of the most entrepreneurial in the world, but they also have some of the best social support systems. I'm not trying to actually have a political conversation about right or left, but Jarrett, what you're talking about is exactly one of the key things, right? It's like one of the key things about this notion is, we have to build a safety net for ourselves. There's been times in my career where I was flying high and then just to hit the wall in a very spectacular way. This face was on the cover of Computer World magazine, right? And then one day I'm like on the cover of Computer World magazine, and my application has sold billions of dollars of computers, and then the next day you're like, boom, and it ain't pretty. So congratulations, Jared. It's part of the process. And then the safety net is, this is one of the reasons that you and I are getting reconnected again. We now have interest from some of the conversations that I was having in Mexico about conversations that are happening in Oklahoma. And we can't necessarily discuss those publicly just for everyone. But part of the thing about it is, you guys have a few billionaires in Oklahoma, and some of them that I know that and when they're knocking around in Mexico, and given that you speak Spanish, right?
I do, yeah. Un poquito.
Solamente un poquito, pobrecito. Necesitamos hablar. We need to. Part of the thing about it is one of the things I can tell the people that might be listening is Jarrett has a lot of international experience, and so part of what we Tech Ranch have talked to him about is getting deployed on different projects and stuff like that because of he's bridged different countries in the past. Jared, I'm going to give you a little bit of space to advertise what you're up to, like where have you been in the past? Because, and part of it is that there is a couple different projects that I won't talk about publicly, but yeah, I can imagine you slating in on the one that I actually reached out to you about.
Nice.
And it's not a project yet. It's not a project. We still have a little bit of work to do. And I'm not looking for an employee. I'm looking for someone who wants to tear into it. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. My passion is really on the building side.
Yeah.
Taking a very raw concept, or sometimes not even, maybe even taking like a desire. Ideally we'd like to do this. We have no idea how to achieve it, and then bringing it to fruition or putting some framework around it. That's what I love to do. Been to 60 countries. So way early on back in college, did a program called Semester at Sea. Turned a cruise ship into a college campus, sailed around the world. It was a blast. So then I, backpacked for 2 years in Central and South America, stopping off at every single place, just getting to know the people. And I was hooked after that point. I've done some work in East Africa. It lived in Uganda and Dubai for a little while, working with an investment bank out there. And for the last almost decade, I've touched on some of the international stuff, but I really haven't hopped back into it. So I think that's kind of the next page in my script.
Yeah, when we'll be talking to him about that. And part of the thing I'll take advantage of, part of the reason we do the videos that like we do for these type of things is I know we have some viewership and some people who listen in online. Let me make sure before anyone else, I know we've had some people who've had to hop into the studio audience and step out and all that sort of stuff because they're kind of curious about, this sort of stuff. Part of the thing to do is if you want to connect with Jarrett after this, or you want to connect to Celia after this, part of the way we do this is in the community site, the video that's produced will be propagated into the site, and there will be essentially a post about today, and each one of the people that speaks will have a way that you can follow up with them there. Okay, what am I trying to do? Selfishly, well, it's not too selfish. One of the most important things is I get a lot of emails right after these things, and I get a lot of WhatsApp messages right after these things. Hey, and I get a crap load of LinkedIn messages. Will you introduce me to that guy that you had on? And I'm like, hey, if you want to be introduced, go to the community site. Jarrett will be there. Celia will be there. Other people that we get to speak today. Some of we'll even link in the company that I mentioned earlier, Care Starter, will be linked in there. If you want to do that, make sure that you go to that page on the community site. It's going to be, you go into the community site. Actually, I'll bring it up in just a second. In fact, I should do that so that we see this. You'll be able to actually follow up. In fact, since I'm talking about it, so I don't forget, I'll go ahead and do this right now. Let's see, let me make sure I go to the right page.
Hey, Kevin, so 2 years ago, I think the last time that I was on, I spoke briefly, and somebody did reach out directly and said, hey, I'm having this issue. And it sounds like you're kind of beating around the bush in that area, and is able to connect them with a few people. So it actually works. Like I've seen it.
Yeah, it's interesting because most people, especially in this, and I just got a question on LinkedIn about to share the URL of the community site. It's community.techranch.com, but to get in right now, you can't knock on the front door of community.techranch.com and get access. If you want to get access and you want to join our community, go to techranch.com/connect, and I'll just bring that up on the screen, techranch.com/connect. And on this page, there's a bunch of different ways of getting connected into the URL, into the Tech Ranch. Subscribe to the newsletter is an example. Join the Tech Ranch community. This is the button that will get you there. If you've got some random other thing you'd like to ask us about, send the email to start@techranchaustin.com. If you want to sign up for our mentor program, apply as a mentor. Our mentor program is not just a wall of faces and some, random, like, one-off kind of interactions, we actually require our mentors to go through a training program. So to be one of our mentors, because we take that word very seriously, mainly because of my martial arts background. 30 years in Japanese martial arts. Part of the thing that I'd like to think about is how can we build senpai kohai relationships, that is, that in a way that it really responsibly builds things forward. Apply as a country manager. We've talked to a number of you about that as well. And then just other, if you want to just find out more and get your venture on our radar, you go to this contact us. So there's a bunch of different random URLs that are here. For the question that I just got asked by Kindle, hopefully it answers your question. And then thanks, looking now, perfect. Thank you for joining us, Kindle. So back to the community site, the thing that I'm actually wanting to say, and Jarrett, stick with us because I want to ask you more, but every week on the VO Weekly, there's a lot of people who can't be on during this time, and they can't be on live. And so we will post into the area, like the video that has, that's there, as well as all the different people that were involved. Like if I clicked on the more, you can see here's the video of last week, and then you'll see that there are links to the different people. Looks like Jello, he hadn't linked in the way to connect with Randy Baker. So my demo is not perfect on that, but typically, like as an example, if you want to connect into Randy Baker, who's one of our investors, as well as one of our entrepreneurs behind a startup called MI7, there's ways of doing that here. All right, so that kind of gives you an idea about what to use this. Since I've got you on watching the screen anyway, to get into the different areas for discussion topics, there's a place where there's lots of different random articles posted. We have a lot of different people who want to just say, hey, here's information about what's happening. Artificial intelligence, this is a new channel, but there's some interesting stuff that's happening in AI that we share back and forth. And this isn't just meant, just to be clear, this isn't meant to be just coming from the TechCrunch Corporation. As an example, David Nichols is one of our members. He joined 6 months ago. He's a tech CEO. Okay, here's what he had to say about connecting AI and data science to using his platform, and different areas there. There's an area here that if you have a random request that you want to make, like as an example, if you want to hire interns from Austin Community College, there's a place to say, hey, if you're interested, we have 17 students. They're looking for internships. And that just happened recently. You have other people like Andrew was saying, how do I solve this one problem? You can take advantage of that because, might as well leverage the wisdom of the crowd. And then there's some private areas here. If you get into our venture outfitter, this is kind of the gym membership of TechCrunch. That then we have special programs like with the Japanese government, the Hungarian government, the Czech government for special bridges that are here as well. These are closed. That's why there's a lock here. But there are different areas that are happening underneath this part of the program. And then there's some internal channels like for our country managers and stuff like that. But the main thing that you can do for free, come in, get oriented in this area here. Take advantage of the Venture Outfitter Weeklies, and then use the different article areas like the different discussion topic channels. Okay, well, so back to that, Jarrett. Sorry that I actually took that tangent, but you gave me a good excuse. I don't know if you're on the community. I hadn't seen you actually in there yet. And I'm like, how could he do this? We broke so much bread together. We drank so much tequila together. It's so sad. So I'm glad that you're here again. I'm glad that you hopped onto the program. What else should we know about Oklahoma City that you would be a good point of contact into? Because you've been a community leader there for a very long time. You're well respected by the high level investors, all the way down to the boots on the ground entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. What should people turn to you on? And if they were going to follow up and tie into your network?
Yeah. So I'd say one of my talents is just being a connector. So, I've helped a lot of people, even a group that left Oklahoma and is now thriving in Austin. I think they've hired on 60 developers in the last year,
What's that company, just so we know?
Televet.
Televet, got it.
Yeah. Yeah, they just exploded with the telehealth for veterinary practices.
That's beautiful. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit more about the Oklahoma, like, I mentioned earlier the oil business.
Yeah.
The life sciences are taking off. There's a lot of medical, like one of the schools there has a in-depth commercialization process around medical technology.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a typical case of the market as a whole is maturing. So 6 years ago, I think 6 years ago, when Kevin and I connected, I was at a technology conference. Starspace 46 is the co-working space that I'm an owner in, and we kind of help pioneer the tech community, provide some glue, the safety net that Kevin was talking about. We did it. We were able to organize about 5,000 technologists throughout the state through a nonprofit, and then we supported them through our event space and just kind of connecting and mentoring. So how Kevin and I connected, I had met somebody at this tech conference. They said, "Oh my gosh, you've got to meet this other person." And this other person, I think, lived in Dallas or somewhere. And so meet him. He's, super interesting, but it's like, "You've got to meet this other guy. He's the OG. He's one of the original gangsters of Austin." And and so I'm thinking, "Oh, bullshit," like, okay, yeah, we'll meet him, And so met Kevin and the rest of the team at Starspace 46. We're like, "Oh my gosh, this story has to be told." Like, Oklahoma City is actually thirsty for this story on how you go from like, this grassroots, like a lot of different things are going on, but how do you organize that and build a cohesive unit and, mature the market. So we brought Kevin in to do, was it a full day event or I think it's just a full day event from 8 a.m. till like 11 p.m. But we legitimately had a lot of the key decision makers that were planning the next decade for the city and the state. And they were just blown away how, a small group of people could have so much impact and guide Austin. And so they had kind of committed to, okay, we're on that path of we're taking Oklahoma City and Oklahoma down that route as well.
Yeah,
So,
it's interesting because one of the things that I was a little bit jealous about is, in my case, with the people that I would claim are the OG class, the original gangster class of the entrepreneurial ecosystem, people here. There were a couple of godfathers, the generation before us, like a guy, Pike Power Sr., who passed away about 1.5 years ago. He was truly OG, original gangster. But then us, we didn't have a lot of support from the government. So I have to admit that one of the things that's really inspiring, and I was a little bit jealous about for Oklahoma City, is they were really, the city leaders are actually really listening. And
they just didn't know how to plug in. And in a lot of ways, they were completely oblivious to a lot of the stuff, the momentum that was already in place.
Yeah. Well, so Jared, one of the other things what part of what I want you to advertise, and I'll go ahead and do it really quick. So if you want to do battery recycling, one of the things that's like in the electric vehicle value chain, one of the things that's really interesting about Oklahoma City is one of the biggest battery recycling institutions or organizations in the world is based in Oklahoma City. Another place that's interesting to look for opportunity is Tinker Air Force Base.
Huge.
What's Tinker do?
Yeah. So Tinker is one of the main Air Force bases in the U.S. It's right downtown in Oklahoma City. But what a lot of people don't realize is that they have the largest software team in Oklahoma City as well. I think it's around, it's a little over 1,000 developers they have on site, which is quite a bit. And so you've got this ecosystem that needs access to the private sector. That's kind of how the Department of Defense, since the end of World War II, and like the DoD has just funneled so much money into entrepreneurship, which then gets used by the DoD. So there's this huge need of connecting the Air Force leaders to emerging technologies, and we've seen that progress. So drone technology has been a big thing. I mean, even down to the social component of families and connecting. When somebody comes in, there's a group locally that started the Facebook for military families, and everybody kind of laughed at it, but I think it's really taken off. So just a lot of needs, but the military didn't know how to connect. The city didn't know how to assist. And so, by coming in and just creating some of those conversations, okay, what do you need? How can we help? And then, okay, let's introduce you to some interesting people that might have solutions. That, it's just as simple as that.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Well, so we'll hear from Jarrett some more. Jarrett, you got to come back. We miss you. And so I'm glad to have you back, and make sure that you're signed up on the community, so that when people follow up, they're able to find you as well, versus sending me the text, hey, do you mind introducing me to that Jarrett? I'm like, hey, it's like, I don't pick up the phone unless it's $10,000, but I'll take care of my homies by getting them connected. So
I'd love to help.
Yeah, no, and in all seriousness, since we didn't get to really talk live, since I was just doing voice notes back and forth over the last few days, I want to talk to you about some of the stuff that's happening in Mexico, guys. I know that you've got the right personality to support some of that activity. And let me use this.
I probably won't come back, just so you know.
Hey, well, as long as you stay in contact.
There we go.
I'll be down there as well. In fact, I'll be giving a speech on May 3rd on the other side of the border in the northern part. But I want to hear from there's another northern Mexico entrepreneur that's on with us. I haven't gotten to interact with him very much yet. His name is Carlos. Carlos, bienvenidos. Welcome.
Gracias. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, tell us where you're from, what you're up to, and what's about to happen, or what's happening in your part of the world.
Well, there's a big movement in terms of nearshoring in northern Mexico. So a couple of years ago, we decided we have a nearshoring custom development software center in Monterrey, around 350 developers. So we decided to come to Austin a year ago and started to approach some of the companies in Austin. But now the movement has grown so much that I'm part of the cluster of software in Nuevo León that actually that's why I reached you the other day, because many companies wants to come and meet the tech community in Austin to see how they can help and build some bridges and start doing some work together. So there's fintechs, there's colleges, there's investors, there's developers. So all the community that is in northern part of Mexico really wants to know how they can interact with the Austin community. And I'm part of one of those groups, but I actually took the first step to open an office in Austin. So that's why they're relying on me to build those connections.
Yeah, that's true. And so the city that you're from is Monterrey, Mexico, right?
Yes, correct.
Well, I should say Monterrey. I gotta like ours right. Yeah, my first time to go to Monterrey, Mexico was in 1991. It was one of my first professional experiences on the other side of the border. And I was quite jealous because I just graduated from the University of Texas at Austin. The technology that was available at Tec de Monterrey, which is like the MIT of Mexico, was more advanced than what we got to touch at University of Texas. And I'm like, how is this possible? It's like, Mexico. No, Mexico actually has, especially in the Monterrey area, has really advanced technology. The Monterrey, as well as the financial capital of Mexico. It's also it's got a really interesting history, and I've driven to Monterrey many times. It's 6 hours driving time from Austin to Monterrey, most people, when they think of Mexico, they think it's like way over there. To an Austinite, it's not that far.
No,
So you're looking at bringing a group of people up here for, you want to say anything more of like, you're going to bring a group of industrialists and business?
in the community, there's big retailers, big banks, some of service companies like mine, and some of the startups that are in the community are forming. So they have different interests. Some of them want investors, some of them want looking for customers, some of the big guys looking for new technologies, how to apply it and bring it to LATAM, to Latin America.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so and the other thing that was announced recently, and I'll let you tell us about it because your perception, I've read a lot of it, but what was announced? What's the big announcement that just happened that's happening in Monterrey that your governor announced?
Oh, the new gigafactory for Tesla is going to be built in this coming year. So it's going to be ready in about 9 months. So it's going to be a little bit bigger than the Austin one. So right now there's a lot of connection between the Austin technology guys and the Monterrey technology guys to see how they can interact in order to bring the same technology to Mexico.
Yeah, in the amount of engineering, I mean, as many, this piece of hardware called an electric vehicle has all sorts of engineering in it, but yeah, on top of that, there's more software than anything else that's ever been on the road, right?
Yeah,
So
sure.
whether it's hardware, battery technology, technology for helping, like as an example, one of the technology companies out of Japan that we're introducing into northern Mexico has printed circuit board technology for using 70% less water, right? There's this massive opportunity, whether it's technology from Japan to land into northern Mexico, or northern Mexico, like Nuevo León, where Carlos is at, in the city of Monterrey. Solving software problems for nearshoring to the United States, a massive opportunity. The shift. What I'm about to say, I want to make sure I'm clear about it, because sometimes I'm perceived. I'm very pro Mexico. I am not anti-Chinese, but there is this massive shift that the last two presidents, President Biden, President Trump, have both signaled kind of a shift away from China. And the shift towards is happening in Mexico, and you see it. You see it right here. Carlos's hometown is a good example of this. Now, because I speak Spanish and because I have more than 30 years of business in Mexico, para mí es súper bien. But for me, it's really good. So, like, I'm like aligned, and I want to make sure that part of the thing that I think that we as business people should be doing is building even more bridges. Let's build, creamos puentes, no paredes. Let's create bridges, not walls, between us, because there's this massive opportunity. It's multi-billion-dollar opportunity, or tens of billions at least. And for the small startup companies that are going to feed into the shift, because anytime there's a shift from regular gas vehicles to electric mobility, that creates disruptions. There's a shift trade-wise away from China towards the Americas. That creates a disruption that startups can take advantage of, as well as the opportunities for the new type of relationships that are honed. So any last words you'd like to say, Carlos, on?
I invite you to go to sometime to Monterrey, because you'll see there's not only an automotive town, there's also financial. There's also all the retail headquarters for Latin America are there. There's the most advanced city in terms of healthcare. So there's the different technologies that you may be a little bit surprised of what is going on over there. And count me in if you need any type of relationship connection with any Mexican company. I'm here to help, my friends.
Yeah, wait, that would be beautiful. In fact, I can echo what Carlos is saying. One of our startups that we hear from, David Potes, who has a company called Ava Health. Originally was called Apollo Health, is now connected. They have a virtual hospital connected to 52 physical hospitals, and they're based there in Monterrey. And definitely, it's this type of pioneering of solutions for healthcare that I really kind of wish we had on this side of the border. But what we're going to do is help him build his company there, and then make sure we bring the technology here to solve the healthcare issues that are not being addressed by the U.S. system. So yeah, Carlos, I look forward to it. Until soon, hasta pronto. Cuando tenemos una caballito de tequila juntos, para salud. Until soon that we get to have some tequila together and to celebrate these bridges. I look forward to it. Thank you for being here, Carlos.
Thank you for the invite.
Yeah. Well, so let's hop over to what we're going to do now. Is yesterday, over the last few days, I've been talking to Deborah. I'm going to say Deborah's last name wrong, so I'm going to get her to say it. Deborah, hop on to the program. Explain to us, how do we say your name, and then the focus on Israel that you're bringing.
Sure. Fuchs is the name.
Fuchs. Okay, Fuchs. What are you up to, Deborah? Like, what are you looking to do? And tell us a little bit about what you and I talked about, that the business that you tend to focus on.
Sure. First of all, thank you for the invite and for the opportunity. So, as you said, from Israel, but currently in Austin, Texas, for the past 3 years. So I am located here, but yes, over 20 years of business development and economic development in the very, very diverse Israeli ecosystem. So the startup nation bursting with innovation. And I see, Jared, you're nodding with your head. Tons of things going on in any possible technology realm that you could imagine. There's so many stuff going on. And over the years, I've been working with countless companies and mainly focusing on the US market, but really looking at all aspects of them growing. And like I mentioned, Israel is a very small country. So the companies, they just start crawling, they're already running, and they're hopping, and they're getting in the boat, and they're flying all over the place. And we were talking about the connections between Austin and Israel, and how I could make those connections and create another bridge for
it makes
a really
a lot of sense.
amazing ecosystem.
One of the things I was telling Deborah is, here's this country of around 10 million people that just like, when I look at Silicon Valley is pretty advanced. But when I look at Tel Aviv, and the 2 times I've been in Tel Aviv over the last, in recent history, just last few years, Tel Aviv is like, it's like Star Trek compared to even Silicon Valley in some ways. And people don't get it because they've never seen it. Like, even if you look at the architecture, it's hard to imagine, and the architecture, but also the technology. In the past, Tech Ranch has helped a number of technology companies that are mainly focused around water gain access to other markets in the world, because without water, there's no life. And one of the things that Israeli entrepreneurs and technologists have had to figure out is how to pull water out of the sea and purify it and stuff like that. Are there any specific technology areas, Deborah, that you're kind of paying attention to, that you want to build relationships with? Again, what I want everyone to see is, we're talking about these different locations, the bridging that happens, right? There's a unique flavor of each part of the world that produces a unique set of solutions because of what was there. And then from those unique solutions, it creates connections that we can make around the world. Because, this is the way, as the phrase goes, about how we can actually really solve world problems together as just, lowly startup entrepreneurs, right? We can actually make those connections and drive these changes. What would be a couple of examples? What are your favorites? A couple of favorite technologies or something like that, or favorite companies you've worked with?
Yeah. No, that's a difficult question to answer, because really, Israel, I think any tech sector or ecosystem that you would talk about, there's something in Israel. And each time I have the privilege that each time I talk with different companies, then I kind of dive into that sphere. So I started working with the company in the prop tech industry, and then I started learning how much is going on in that field in Israel. So everything, homeland security, there's amazing stuff, food tech, clean tech, and agricultural technologies, AI, like everything that is going on, anything that's kind of on the top of the radar of the of the global high-tech ecosystem. When you dive deep in, you see there's something already going on in Israel. It's really amazing. I don't think there's any field that they don't touch on. I think all the technologies now that we're all focused on making this world a better place and everything, making it more sustainable and greener and the whole water. And I mentioned the food tech. I love those things just because what's standing behind it. I love the fact of trying to make this world a better place and trying to leave something better for the future generations, but really touch on so many different things that anything that you could think of, if there's any US company or Mexican company or anyone that's trying to tap into that ecosystem, I could make the connections. I could spotlight that specific company that could provide the technology. And I'm sure that any technology that you're looking for, you could find somebody that's already working on it in Israel or says, okay, I'll work on it, I'll find a solution. So they're very entrepreneurship oriented.
Yeah, the way we were
Society.
talking about the warrior culture that happens, everyone in Israel goes through a conscription where they're part of the Israeli army. I think that that's some of the best training for becoming entrepreneurs. And so the country is extremely entrepreneurial, brilliant, from the scientists that have immigrated there from, all over the world, Russia and the United States. A lot of Israelis actually, moved there from other parts of the world. And then on top of that, I think the military experience hones the entrepreneurial edge. So yeah, in this whole country of entrepreneur warrior technologists, or so, I'm not sure what the phrase is yet. Yeah, I'm definitely a fan. So I look forward to having you join us and help us build a more formal bridge between the places. Jarrett, you had something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's more the gap year that a lot of Israelis will use just right after service, where they go around the globe, and it is, you can tell the maturity level. I mean, the professionalism, it starts at a very young age. It's really cool to see.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so let's do this. I know we've gone over our time just a little bit. I want to go ahead and wrap up kind of quick. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Jarrett. Thank you, Carlos. And thank you, Celia, before. What we'll do is, I got a question from Kindle on the LinkedIn stream. And I'm sorry, today I did not get to monitor the Facebook stream like I normally do. Kindle asked, let's see, I would like to know how I can get in touch with Carlos and Jarrett. And I want to make sure that everyone knows the best way to do that, the best way to get in touch with different people on this is in the area where this episode is posted into our community site, community.techranch.com. In the area that the Venture Outfitter Weekly, this is the name of the program, is the Venture Outfitter Weekly. There will be a channel that just says Venture Outfitter Weekly. There will be today's episode that's going to be there. And then everyone that's there is going to be a community member. And part of what I ask our community members, whether we have a, governmental official, which we've had, top level governmental officials in the past, we ask them to just pay attention to the community site for the next week, so that, threads that come out, if there's questions, instead of asking me a question that you want to send to Jarrett about Oklahoma City, you can actually reach out to him directly there. And what will happen is Jello is going to, my assistant's going to make sure that everyone's linked in there and that their contact way. Now, if some of you want to be contacted in a specific way, you can let Jello know. Hey, don't put a link to my Tech Ranch community, avatar there. Here's my email address, or here's my LinkedIn. How, you can organize this however you want about making sure that we follow up in the way that makes it easy for you. That being said, I encourage people to take the conversation there, because there's always follow-up questions. As an example, Paulina mentioned, my grandmother is going to Israel next month. Okay, well, if you want to get connected and solve, There might be other people that are interested in that are doing travel. Maybe that's a good example of where that type of follow-up can happen. And then you can take it, to wherever you want to have a deeper conversation, whether it's one-on-one over Zoom or whatever you do. The main thing is part of what we're wanting to really drive with the community, that I've seen this in the past, and the community site's a new piece of technology. We just implemented it just over the last few months. So, it needs some work. It's not all there, but the thing that's happening is we want to increase the connectivity among us so that those opportunities, there are no opportunities without connectivity first. It's required first. So, okay, I have been really verbose today, and I want to make sure that we go ahead and wrap things up. If you're interested in plugging in and you don't know necessarily how to plug in yet, the website URL that I went over earlier is techranch.com/connect. On that connect link, there's a bunch of different places to get connected into TechRanch, whether whether you're an entrepreneur that just wants to say, hey, I'd like to have TechRanch consider getting us involved somewhere, or I would like to get into the community, or I'd like to be a country manager, I'd like to do most of those URLs are there. If there's not one that follows what you're looking for, make sure you just send us an email at the email address that's listed there as well, and we'll go from there. And so, just in wrapping up quickly, thank you all for your time today. Kendall says, thanks again, Kevin. Connectivity is key. I love the cast. Thank you, Kendall, for watching the stream. Thank you all for the other comments that have been made on the streams. We'll continue to do the streams. You're also, while we're using Zoom as our structure, you're welcome to come into the studio audience as well. At some point, we're going to be flipping, especially when we have large groups. It's hard to have 50 plus people in the, we've done it, but it's hard to manage the conversation. So we were going to be flipping into another piece of software called Restream in the future for how we manage things. But while we have it like this, I kind of really like these organic, connected community conversations. I miss the days of old where, we do it in the community area of the co-working place that I started, but I think it's more important now to take it to the world. So that's why I sold that co-working operation. That being said, it's my honor to be here with a group of entrepreneurs that are driven by vision and values from around the world. Let's go change the world for the better together. Y'all take good care. Thank you for being on today, and let us know what you need. Take care.